that's another thing. Relationships are really interesting, or well, female relationships, and just personal relationships with friends and stuff. Um, so like with friends, it's very difficult for me to create a stronger friendship because um, I can enjoy people's company in like a public set, or not public, or yes public, but there's several people involved, and there's no demand of you as yourself for them. Um, but even still, it still depends. I at least have to have one person I'm really comfortable with in a crowd, and I'll go nuts. They would, like, so long people thought I was extroverted or introverted depending on who I'm not with or with. Um, but then they find out I'm reverse to what they thought. That made sense, didn't it? um, so, oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, friendships. So the struggle is everyone is influenced fundamentally in some way, and uh, the depth of the relationship is limited by their, well, there's several different variables, but one of them being what they truly believe. That's actually a huge factor. Um, and like on the surface, it doesn't really matter, but when you're actually trying to connect in a deeper level, you can't go beyond silly talk and irrelevant things. At least to me, I mean, we can talk irrelevant things for a little bit, but that's just so exhausting. We have to kind of get some meat eventually. So I have some friends that they every single time we'll hang out, they always have this expectation of the relationship to be at a certain depth. But the problem is they're governed by a different way of think or believing, and which I'm like, fine. I mean, I still want to be your friend, of course, but you can't expect the relationship being so deep when our fundamentals are different. And it's kind of like they kind of they not expect, well, expect, but they kind of push along. Especially, I have an ENFP friend who is like that, and every single time we meet, there's like this awesome synergy that happens between us. And he's very visionary and very out there, and he's like, let's go do this, and I love that. I'm like, okay, let's go do that. But wait a minute, your influence of what you're wanting to do is off of a principle or principles that I don't fundamentally stand with, and so there's not going to be a certain depth potential in that in what we're doing, or just in the relationship in general. So we kind of end up just saying stupid things to each other, like just not really being personable all the time. And any time we do, we're always telling the other person's wrong. We're always trying to convince the other person has something wrong. And I mean, yes, there's for me, like, because he's very out there and outgoing and wanting to just explore life and just live life. And like, yeah, I agree with that. I definitely need more of that, and I really appreciate doing stuff like that. But that's also very personable to me. And so when I'm out here spending all this time and effort and energy and blood and sweat with you, and not only that, but also kind of like he and I would probably start a movement together if we were on the same page. Since if I'm going to be in that kind of space with you, it really does matter kind of like where we both stand, because that's going to influence the depth of our relationship. And if we may not be able to actually experience that depth, but they expect that depth. But anyway, other relationships. Let's see here. Well, I've successfully dated one person for a month, 2012. So you can tell things are going great. I've had a couple of interests and stuff, and relationships are really interesting. I find that women tend to have a difficulty opening up to me, even though I try everything in my power to seem open and like encouraging and whatnot. Except women in my past, I've been a complete idiot and an a-hole. Um, yeah, definitely had to do a lot of growth during high school and middle school. Um, I felt this, well, I couldn't communicate my emotions because that was a place where I had no words for. And so I didn't know what it meant to feel like, I feel left out, or I feel like we're not connecting. Or just to even communicate that with them. But they were just interests. I guess back then you can't really be dating because you're too young. Or I don't know, whatever. So I was just a real idiot. But anyway, so yeah, I find it is difficult for other women to warm up to me. But then also, well, kind of like when I first meet them on a shallow level, they seem very open and like interested, but so I'm cursed. I have I have the physical nature of a jock, but the brain of it would look like a nerd. And so here I am, being very nerdy in what I do and really love it, but then also capable of being one of the fastest kids in school, and things like that. And so I was always in this strange paradigm of, attracting different kinds of women, but then I would be like, but those women would be the extremes of those different places, or those different, I don't know, atmospheres. So like on track or in sports, there's the sport girls, but they're a little too much for me on that end. And then there's the artistic kind of ladies, and then they're just too much on that end. Excuse me. I have to be careful because I don't mind, someone really loving what they do. Actually, I don't base a lot off of that, but I definitely find myself to be extremely picky, probably way too picky. But I look at somebody, I'm like, I don't know, something's missing, there's just, but also, okay. So problem with INTPs also is that we have a chain, or not a chain. We have we have a tube, and we have all these thoughts, and they're being smudged in through this tube, and they're being cut out in chunks out of this tube. And then we're on the fly trying to figure out what's the more reasonable to try to communicate this out of the mouth. But then we find out that something else later on in the sausage tube was actually better to say earlier than what we've already said later. And so now we try to backtrack, but then we make our listener completely confused at what the heck we're saying. It is fantastic. I feel so understood. But anyway, what am I saying? Just people's extremes, or yeah, people just kind of like they're missing something, and a lot of the time, for me, a big shutdown is I can tell when people, they have struggles, but they're not willing to do anything to strengthen themselves through those struggles. They're allowing themselves to be the victim of those issues. And the problem is that stuff is so subtle. It is hard to determine, or it's hard for you yourself to recognize these things, and fessing up to them, and then figuring out how do I unwind these knots that are in my mind, and whatnot, because like on my end I see them so clearly, but also I'm very what's the word? Well, I must not be very that if I don't even remember what the word is. The word I am looking for is, found the word I'm looking for. So the other problem is I'm very loyal as an individual, because like some of the issues that I was talking about, I can accept them as long as there's some kind of, forward movement about them. And I know that there's going to be more things about you I don't like that I will find later on. But I'm okay with that. And I'm like, as a very loyal person, I kind of put a lot up at front. I don't ease things in. I'm like, when I start talking to somebody, I'm like, you know what? I like this person, and I can see myself marrying them. Bam! Like I go as that far, and so I would put a lot out there at first, and it freaks people out, freaks women out, especially because they want to test the waters, and then if there's something that they don't like, they'll just move you along and replace you with Mr. Joe that's a complete idiot and but makes them feel fuzzy inside, but then can't go beyond that. But so yeah, so that kind of intimidates, I find, women a lot of the time, because I don't I don't play games with it, I guess. I don't try to test the waters to figure out if this is what I truly want, because that's completely selfish and self-centered and stupid, in my opinion. Like, I see you, you're pretty, and I find that your persona is kind of what I appreciate as a person, and I find attractive, and um, awesome. Then I'm for it. When on the first date, even though I haven't really dated anybody even on at all, I've had like a couple interests in the past 5 years, and it's not really gone anywhere. But um, yeah, so I look at what it's going to cost me, and I take a deep breath and like, okay, let's do it. I'm going to do everything I can to figure out what you need as a person from me. What do you need from me? And I will change my mentality. I will change, how I treat you, to make sure you feel, accepted, loved, and all that stuff. And I guess one of my biggest fears is not having that in return, but that same kind of motivation, or not really motivation, just the same kind of eagerness to try to make the relationship work. And that's what I would do, anything to make the relationship work. And I just find a lot of people nowadays is just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, and they just move along. And I guess they kind of don't like the I don't know, passionate loyalty of, and I know it's a lot like upfront, and I know I do have to learn to like ease in a little bit better, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I don't know how other INTPs might work out on relationships and what you guys look for in a person, or how you handle all that, but it could be a pain. Also, it's kind of interesting, like with touch. Like touch to me is extremely personable and just intimate, and like I don't know about anybody out there, but if someone comes to you and like puts their hand on your shoulder, that's fine, as long as they do it like firmly. A lot of men, especially if they like kind of gently, it's okay, or kind of like, but some of them are just sensitive, and in their mind, it's the best if they approach you very sensitively, because that's how they see, comforting other people. But it ends up freaking me out, and like, don't touch me, please. But I don't mind being touched if it's, like I said, firm, and like, grab me. Don't be delicate, because it really does, and it does create in my mind a very sensual thing. And if someone's caressing me, it feels like it's caressing me. It's not really caressing me. They're just gentle about how they touch me. I become very intimately close with that person, like really fast. And if I haven't really accepted them in that kind of role, it becomes very awkward, and I get taken aback by that.